So I think even the most casual NBA fan could tell you that the single game scoring record in the league is 100 points and that it's held by Wilt Chamberlain. It's pretty much recognized as the most unbeatable record of all time, along with Bill Russell's 11 rings. But how did he manage to get to 100 points? So what's up guys, my name is Will, and today we're going to be looking at some of the highest single game scoring performances of all time in the NBA. Whether they happened in the flow of the game, whether they were stat padded or forced, and how they came about. Wilt's 100th point night came on the March 2nd, 1962 in a game against the New York Knicks. So the rumblings that Wilt was going to score 100 points one night had already started, as he had been shattering the single game scoring record game after game. Oh, and by the way, this was the season that Wilt averaged 50 points per game. Ahead of the game against the Knicks, Wilt made sure to get good sleep and plenty of rest. Actually, that's a lie. The story goes that he was out partying until 6 AM in Manhattan and had a massive hangover. No, seriously, that's what he did the night before he scored 100. Since the game was insignificant, attendance was low, and Wilt was nursing a massive hangover, his teammates claimed that he had no plan to score 100 points that night. However, his plan may have changed after he scored 23 points in the first quarter and was hitting all of his free throws. His bad free throw shooting was always the thing holding him back, as teams could prevent him from scoring by sending him to the line. However, this game, Wilt went 28 for 32 from the line. Now, the truth about this game was that it was not competitive at all. It happened right ahead of the playoffs, when the Warriors were in second place in the conference and the Knicks were in last place. So when Wilt had 41 at halftime and the Warriors were blowing out the Knicks, the focus of the game became to try and get Wilt to 100 points, as the game was mostly in the bag. So Wilt set out. Through double, triple and quadruple teams, he just started raining down buckets on the Knicks, who couldn't do anything but foul. Which is what they ended up doing. Insulted by the clinic that Wilt and the Warriors were putting on, the Knicks players began to foul Wilt's teammates to prevent him from getting to 100 points. So in response to this, the Warriors players began to foul the Knicks players to regain possession. And the game at this point was pretty far divorced from any legit competitive basketball game. Now the story goes that right as Wilt hit 100 points with a few minutes left of the game, players started just storming the court in celebration and the game had to be called off. But this turns out it was actually not true, and after the fans had been cleared off the court, the game was finished. Now it's a great story to tell, and because it was so long ago and no footage exists of the game apart from one radio broadcast, it sort of drifted into the stuff of legends. But it wasn't a competitive game, and he didn't need to score 100 points for them to win the game. Which brings me to the second highest single game scoring performance of all time, Kobe Bryant's 81.9. Out of all these games on the list, this is by far my favorite. And it's not because Kobe played while I was alive, or because Kobe is one of my favorite players of all time. It's because all of his 81 points came in the spirit of competition, meaning that his team needed every single one of those points to win the game. Let's start at the beginning. It's January 22nd, 2006, and the Lakers are playing the Raptors at the Staples Center in LA. Toronto comes out hot, and it's up 36-29 after the first quarter, and they extended that lead to 63-49 at the half. So as Kobe only had 26 points in the first half and the Lakers were down 14, no one at the Staples Center that night had a clue that they were in for one of the greatest performances of all time. Cue the second half. Kobe pours in 27 points in the third quarter, obliterating Toronto's lead as the Lakers outscored them 42-22, and Kobe's point total goes up to 53.
Kobe again, yes sir!
So this would have been his second highest scoring game of the season, and his second highest career scoring game. But there was still one more quarter to play.
Yes!
With the Lakers now up 6, Kobe continues his tear and puts in another 28 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win the game 122-104, giving him 55 points in the second half and 81 for the game.
This would be 18 for 20 from the line and an 81-point game.
And when I mentioned earlier that the Lakers needed all of his 81 points to win, that wasn't entirely correct. Coach actually almost took him out of the game when he was at 77 points because the game was in the bag, but he decided against it as it would probably have ensued something the likes of the 92 LA riots. But still, this game is my favorite on the list. Moving down the list, David Thompson holds the third highest single game scoring performance of all time, if you ignore the fact that Wilt holds 4 of the top 6. Anyways, he put up 73 points in the last game of the 77-78 regular season. Why did this happen in the last game? Well, at the time he was trailing George Gervin in the race for the scoring title that year, so he decided to put up as many points as he could so he could get ahead of him. To do that, he started with breaking the record for points scored in a quarter by putting up 32 in the first. When the game was over, he was just ahead of George Gervin in the scoring title, and he had just broken a new NBA record that night. So you would think that he would be satisfied with his effort, but George Gervin was not having it. Later that night, the Spurs were playing against the Jazz, and after having heard what David Thompson had just done earlier, he put in an effort of his own. Knowing exactly how many points he needed, Gervin put up 63 points in less than 3 quarters to narrowly edge out Thompson by 0.07 of a point. After he had put up 63, he sat out the rest of the game, which the Spurs eventually lost. But not only did he do that, he made it his business to delete David Thompson's recently set single quarter scoring record by 1 point when he put up 33 points in the second quarter. That's a cold move by the Iceman. As we move along the list, David Robinson found himself in a similar position as David Thompson in 1994, when he was trailing Shaq in the race for the scoring title. To beat him, he needed 66 points in the final game of the season. So for good measure, he put up 71 points for the 4th highest single game scoring performance of all time. Again, if you ignore Wilt's other entries. Luckily for David Robinson, Shaq did not have a game on later that night, and he was able to clinch the scoring title with a 71-point game. And lastly, the most recent entry of the highest single game scoring list. Devin Booker, who at the age of 20 put up 70 points against the Celtics on the 24th of March 2017. Now, I'm quite torn on this performance, and let me tell you why. First of all, getting 70 points in a game puts you in elite all-time company, and is incredible no matter the context. But while D-Book has proven that he can be a deadly scorer, he hasn't done much in the way of winning, and this game reflected that. So the Suns were behind right from the beginning, being down by as much as 3-22 after 7 minutes, and at halftime they were trailing 66-43, and Devin Booker only had 19 points on the board. So the game was pretty much out of reach before it even started. So when Booker started to heat up in the third quarter, the objective of the game began to shift more towards get D-Book as many points as possible, and less towards winning the game. This led to some pretty weird tactics. Late in the fourth quarter, when the Suns were down by double digits and he had put up north of 50 points, the Suns began to foul the Celtics players to regain possession of the ball. They also called 2 timeouts in the last 2 minutes to draw up plays and figure out a tactic to get D-Book to 70.
He did it! And the crowd is happy, so...
The Celtics won the game, 130-120. In fairness to D-Book, he got blazing hot and did shave some points away from the Celtics' lead. But still, I don't like it when the game becomes divorced from the competition and players start to do weird things to put stats on the board. And it would seem like some of the Celtics players agree with me. Jay Crowder said, "I've never seen so many guys happy after an L." And Isaiah Thomas said, "I don't think anybody's ever seen that," referring to the timeouts and the fouling. But they all gave D-Book credit for his record-breaking performance, and let's not forget, this was also the tactic used to get Wilt to 100 points. So I guess maybe that's what you have to do to score that many points. So before we end, a question to you. Do you think that James Harden could score 90 points in a game if that was his objective and all his teammates had bought into it? I think he could, but let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment below, and if you enjoy the NBA and its history, subscribe for more content.